And the journey continues. I don't think there's all that much left between us and the final shrine at this point. We just need to actually get to it. Not that anyone we've met in the game has told us where that is, or where to really go in order to learn that. So once again, I'm looking at maps and guides from outside the game to figure out what to do next. Part of me wants to ask why the lesser tiger was the more vibrant color and the saber-tooth was gray-furred with black stripes. Someone wearing clothes, that can be a good color combination if done right, but for fur on a tiger, it just... yeah. I'm pretty sure that there's a white tiger with black stripes. That's a cardinal direction and has plenty of meaning in Asian countries. Wonder where we're gonna see that one in this game. Great, now I'm trying to remember what direction the white tiger is. I remember the Japanese name for that tiger, Byakko, mostly because I remember that it and the other beasts were antagonists in the show Yu Yu Hakusho. I know the red phoenix, Suzaku, represents north, I know the black turtle, Genbu, is south, and I know the blue dragon, Seiryu, is the opposite direction of the tiger, Byakko. Bloody hell. It's just like my personal annoyance with myself for knowing ship directions. I know bow is front, stern is back, but I can't remember if starboard is left and port is right, or if it's the other way around. It's a mental coin toss every time I try to assign those things. 50% of the time I get it right, the other half I'm wrong, and I never fully stick with the right or wrong answers. I know it's not all that important to our current situation, still. It kinda helped kill some time as we shopped in Gaia again, and kinda let me keep talking as we head back to Melvin. Sometimes going on a bit of a ramble is a good thing. You know, it would help if I remembered where the guy we have to talk to is standing in this town. There we are! It certainly took this guy a long time to be in any way relevant to the plot, but then with a story this simplistic, I don't think saying it has a plot is all that accurate. It's got all the critical bare bones of an adventure, but unfortunately it doesn't really have a cast of characters now, does it? Excuse me for wishing I knew what was making sense at the moment for you. On the one hand, I find it absolutely absurd that we could somehow learn an entire language with that kind of ease. I know it's a magical world and all that, but still, I would have expected a bit more effort than that, at the very least, but no. Just hand a man a Rosetta Stone, then let him talk to us for a bit, and suddenly we learn what should be a dead language, or mostly dead outside of our next major destination once I'm done buying some more supplies. Bloody hell, the Pixel Remaster certainly made shopping for items more convenient, even if buying spells is the exact same pain in the ass as it's always been in every iteration of this game. I get why earlier towns don't sell higher-end items like high potions, but why do later towns not bother to sell the more basic potion as well? Is the way I stuck up on healing items in this game weird or something? Especially when we have a white mage who is so obscenely capable of healing every wound we've got via magic for a good amount of time. Seriously, how many times have I pulled out the cure spell, and how many times have I used potions and eye potions to get the same job done? In some ways, it feels like I only have a white mage around in case of major emergencies, like a boss hitting everyone at once, and wanting to keep up our offense with 3 team members while the 4th just heals everyone. That's not a bad thing, but it still makes me feel guilty that Morn ends up feeling like dead weight a lot of the time when we're not feeling backed into a corner. Though considering how a lot of multiplayer healers end up feeling in various games, MMOs or tabletops, Perhaps us keeping Morn from really pushing that healing ability to the limit is one less source of stress for him. Right, here's a new town, Lufenia. If we had gotten here before we had that guy in Melmond work with the Rosetta Stone, we'd have gotten nothing but gibberish as these people talk to us. Granted, most of these angelic bastards don't have much worth remembering, just like every other town we walk into and try to talk to everyone, but still, part of what I find fun is just wandering around the town and talking to everyone. Sometimes you get amusing little tidbits, like what we just got from that guy there. I thought the whole Sid and airships thing started in Final Fantasy IV. Nope. Apparently someone named Sid is responsible for the airship we've got in the absolute first game of the franchise as well, though we'll never get to meet him. Well, congratulations. You lived long enough to see the prophecy come true. Hope we managed to live up to your expectations. Good to know, but it's not like someone without a map would know where the Mirage Tower is. I know that in my first ever playthrough of the game, I thought just randomly flying around in the airship would let us find a way to get into the floating castle that serves as the air shrine, but that was a waste of quite a bit of time. Well, since we haven't seen or heard anything about any 5 warriors before now, I don't like their chances. We saw a good number of bats all the way back in the Chaos Shrine. Sure, it's not the only place we saw bats. There were some also in the Earth Cave, and I think that ruined castle where we fought the Dark Elf Prince. But still, that's a decent hint where the final location of the game will be. And I've got to admit, while we never get to see the Sky People actually doing anything on screen, I do like the fact that it sounds like they did genuinely try to save the world before the Light Warriors showed up. The only other example of people in this world actually trying to work to save it before we arrived was all the way back in Cornelia with the soldiers who apparently tried and failed to rescue Princess Sarah from Garland. Anyway, now we've got what we needed from here, and not much reason for us to stick around since it's not like this town has any stores. Considering this was a high-tech civilization before the disaster several hundred years ago, you'd think they'd have been able to rebuild to some degree or another in the obscene amount of time afterwards. Sure, they probably lost a lot of people and quite a lot of information in whatever libraries they had at the time, but it's been over 500 years, and this place looks worse off than most of the frickin' villages we've gone to. Not a single store to be found. Seriously, around 400 years is still more than enough time to get some kind of iron forge made or something. I'm not saying they should have been able to get back to the industrial age of technology by now, but they're still living in some pretty basic stone structures and wearing very basic robes. I'm just not getting the sense that these people even tried to rebuild. They're just hoping that magically they'll end up in their old home again. Yeah, we kind of figured that the people who are nicknamed the Sky People were connected with the Sky Temple. And while I appreciate that you sent 5 warriors to try to figure out who's responsible for the world falling apart around you, outside of that, you've been just as static as everyone else on the planet. It's one thing to pin all your hopes on a group of heroes saving the day when you've tried everything else. It's another to just limply stand there waiting for destiny to arrive and save you for it all. I know a lot of that is just how old the game is, and that most games released at around this time period had at times less storytelling than even this. I'm not asking for on-screen moments of badassery or epic struggles. I just feel like we could have had more dialogue that implies people have been trying and failing to save the world without the 4 Warriors of Light. And perhaps have more people be thankful when the Warriors manage to solve a given problem in a given part of the world. Anyway, time for us to get moving to the Mirage Tower. It's going to be a damn long period between saves, so I'm definitely going to have to cut things off at an abrupt moment for this clip. Still kind of feeling hyped, though, since we're about to get to the final of the 4 elemental shrines, which means we're at the second to last dungeon. We're definitely getting close to the end, and I feel pretty confident in this team, even if I haven't been using our mages to their fullest potential. I just wish there was something to talk about other than anticipation for what's gonna come later on. It's not like there's much point in me saying anything about fighting a sandworm in a location that doesn't have sand, or the winter wolves in the non-winter environment. Okay, so we know where the Mirage Tower is. It's just annoying to find a landing zone for it since we're not allowed to land on the sand for some reason. Ah, well, at least we can make sure we're about as topped off as we can be before entering the thing. At least that patch of ground let us touch down on it, and now we're in the tower. Really wish there was something about this place other than it just being another dungeon for us to navigate on our way to the next major plot point. But that would require a lot more world building and an actual narrative in this game, and that would require a story that feels more complicated than the usual Pokemon journey where you just gather the critical items needed to allow you to, go to the gauntlet that lets you beat the champion at the end. It's a damn strong baseline for an adventure game. That's why Pokemon rarely seems to deviate from that sort of thing, and at best just adds a little something for flavor. But, yeah, dear God, it would just feel downright mean of me to just bitch about the lack of storytelling for a role-player game from the 1980s, when technology really did limit how much you could throw into a given game. But again, I like to have a good frequency of commentary in a given clip, and as fun as this game is overall, it really doesn't give me a lot per clip to analyze. The visual design is pretty timeless, and the PSP version just made the image less hazy than the original, while the Pixel Remaster just did a bit of cleaning up, while still keeping it look as basic as the original. You know, not really inserting some of the details that easily could have been there. But we've seen these visuals for 27 clips in this LP now, so anything I feel was especially noteworthy to say in that regard has already been said. It's not like there's much sense in really just taking a jab at a role-player game that had a more awkward jump to three-dimensional graphics and left sprite work behind, because we haven't gotten to any of those games yet. As a side note, for some reason I was expecting that Black Knight to last longer, not entirely sure why. Ah well, as yet another random encounter dealt with in a hurry, just like so many others. On one hand, I kind of wish the fights around here were more memorable on their own, but I think I said it before, either the player is absolutely dominant against our innumerable foes, or we're struggling to the point we can't make any further progress. There is no middle ground, at least not generally with this style of turn-based game. And I'm sorry to say, I tend to prefer the middle ground there, so this genre generally gets carried by the storytelling for me. And as I keep saying, Final Fantasy I has the most bare-bones plot you could possibly get away with, and no further narrative beyond that. I suppose it's quite the achievement for the game that it took us getting this close to the ending before I started to get especially annoyed at the lack of story. There's under 3 hours left in the game, at least according to the raw footage I've still got. Just need to keep pushing. Which of course means continuing to fight an obscene number of random encounters as we work our way to the actually important clashes against bosses. And unfortunately, this is going to be a pretty long dungeon, so there's going to be quite a bit of crap we need to fight through before we get to the boss Tiamat. Just what made the game designers decide on a name like Tiamat anyway? That's a Mesopotamian goddess, literally the primordial sea. But for some reason she's going to be in the Wind Temple, the place of the goddamn sky, rather than the Water Shrine, where you would think the primordial sea would be. Hold on, let me just check on... Ah! So apparently this is another case of them taking some inspiration from Dungeons & Dragons. That was the first time she was ever depicted as a multi-headed dragon. For some reason, I thought the dragon interpretation was older than the 1970s. Still older than I am, though, so that's gotta be worth something. Just how many times are we going to open a chest and it turns out we've got something better than that already equipped? That probably wouldn't feel so annoying if it wasn't for the fact that we've already bought all the equipment we're ever gonna need quite a while ago. So our only source of fresh gear is the stuff we find in treasure chests in the late game dungeons. But no, all too often they give us money, when we've already got more than enough to be confused what we're supposed to do with it all. And getting items that only Boromir can put on, but aren't as good as what he currently has, is a frustrating tease. Apparently the only real preparation we can do for the remaining bosses in the game is just level up and hope we get lucky as we check various boxes all over the damn place. Well, that's about equal with what we have right now. Not too sure why we'd need extra protection against stone when we're trying to climb to the Wind Shrine. I'm pretty sure our main threats are gonna be monsters that use wind-based attacks, with the occasional lightning user as we deal with things both in and above the clouds. That's just me guessing, though. It's not like the Mirage Tower is all that thematic to hostiles that would have illusionary powers or something, like the name would suggest. It's just a mishmash of things from were-tigers to nightmares to black knights. Maybe, just maybe, the unicorns/nightmares count as illusion-based things, but I was expecting things like genies, fairies, kitsune, just various creatures that would fit with the fact that this place is named the Mirage Tower. Hell, I dare say that the enemies we're seeing here visually clash with the ancient temple look of the ground and walls. It just don't look good in this environment. Yeah, bad idea to snort at a guy that can take you down in a single hit. Treat Boromir with more respect, you bastards. Okay, why do those bits of stone seem to have some kind of red Tron lines on them? And why do we have robots in a generic-looking desert temple? I know the Sky People had some high tech before they got kicked out of their own, but still, can we at least wait until we get to an environment that looks more science-y before we start seeing science and technology? Shimmer is kind of fit this environment. The were-tigers also kind of fit. But everything else just feels like it clashes with the cracked stone environment we're in. I mean, Black Knights look like they should be in a medieval castle. It's not a major complaint. I'm pitching for the sake of pitching and killing a few more minutes here, but still, it is kind of noticeable. Should I feel more threatened by the Nightmares or the Black Knights? On the one hand, this dungeon is the first time we've seen the Black Knights. On the other hand, the Nightmares have a status-affecting attack that can make things a little more annoying for Tyson. And again, Tyson seems to be getting the vast majority of status ailments and just outright damage. Poor guy just has the worst luck in this entire playthrough. Sure, he's been pulling his weight and more over the course of all 27 clips, but good God. I'm sure if I checked all the clips and calculated the damage everyone's received, he's taken the brunt of it. And to make things all the more awkward, he's got the second least amount of health on the team and can't wear as much armor as even the supposedly fragile mages. Should I bother asking why there are vampires in here when there's been no rhyme or reason for any of the other random encounters in this tower? And part of me can't help wondering how these guys measure up to the vampire that was a boss earlier in the game. Huh. Okay, just checked online and everything I can find points to the boss having the same amount of health as these late-game random encounters. I suppose that's one way to show how badass we've become.